what is the drill as far as chaplains helping other chaplains? Is there how often do you recommend that chaplains check in with somebody and debrief or take a temperature? You know,
it really depends on what's been going on. Referred to the helicopter pilots, they were from Garland County, and the chaplain there had not had a line of duty death to deal with, and we were able to help him, the chaplains that, myself and the chaplains that worked with me, because we'd experienced it, and we knew what to do, and we knew who to call, and that was a big help for him. And it was nice to follow up with him and make sure that he was doing okay, and if he needed any help during that time, you know, we could provide the people. The chaplains that I worked with, we met at a minimum every other week, just because we had a lot of stuff going on all the time. And
do you find that just forcing, or not forcing, but you may not feel as if you need to talk about something and that it's okay, but that you have to encourage people, look, just talk about it anyway?
Well, when you're dealing mostly with pastors, you don't have any trouble getting them to talk about stuff because they like to talk. We brought in some lay people from the community to help out with the program because it had gotten that big, but we pretty much kind of required it of them they had to talk about whatever they went through. And even if it was just a very simple, you know, this was the situation, this is how I handled it kind of thing, just so it was at least out on the table and everybody knew what had happened. So if something came up later, we knew what the person was talking about.
How do you know, how are you able to judge whether or not the way that they're talking about it is actually beneficial or is having the therapeutic effect that it needs to, or whether it's just sort of...
It's just a recitation of the facts and nothing else.
Yeah.
You can tell that how with people's, how they're sitting, if they're leaning into the table or not, you know, when they're talking about it, or leaning into the conversation, or if they're just sitting there looking, you know, like they're bored more than anything, and they're just reciting the facts. And there's words that you look for, you know, like I felt that, you know, if that doesn't ever get said, they're just telling you the facts and not anything that they were going through themselves personally through whatever the tragedy was. And it's hard when you're dealing, especially with death, to not get involved. I mean, there has to be some kind of personal connection there.
Do you find with police officers that just to begin for them to talk about how they feel about something is avoided at all costs because they're afraid it will become a
sign of weakness?
Not a sign of weakness, but a absolute, like the dam will break, and they have so much that's sitting behind this dam that they just don't want to.
I can say that when I first started, they were actually taught to internalize it and not speak of it. But after mental health got involved with most police agencies, with the advent of the chaplaincy growing like it has, I think you see a lot. And for instance, the Arkansas State Police had their senior chaplain speak to the recruits and taught a class to the recruits. So you see a lot more now of, it keeps the burnout level down. You know, if they can talk to the chaplain about some of this stuff, it keeps the, you know, people from quitting when they hit a overwhelming kind of thing because they have somebody to talk to.
How did you sell that? How did you sell that idea that they need to talk about their feelings? And
well, you don't have to sell it. if you're sitting in a car with a police officer, you don't have to sell anything to him because he's comfortable. He's safe in his police car. Or she's safe in her police car. That's their office. That's home for them. So they're much more willing to talk about things in the car, knowing that when they talk to me as the chaplain or to whoever as the chaplain, that's as far as it's going. It's not going to supervisor, it's not going to the sheriff, it's not going to the chief, it's not going anywhere but the car. And when we part company at the end of the shift or whenever, it's between us. And it's a lot easier for people to talk about stuff when they know nobody else is going to know about it. It's just between you and the chaplain. And it should never be anything but that.
Does it have to happen organically, or sort of, if you try to impose these moments?
I think it happens organically is a good word for it. I mean, if I've just been through something with this officer, we had a car wreck where children were killed or something, we're sitting in the car together driving down the road, it's going to come up. And we're going to talk about it because 9 times out of 10, they either have kids or grandkids the same age, or, you know, they have nephews and nieces, and they'll, you know, it'll come up, you know, what did you think about that wreck the other day, you know, and once the door's open, then they can talk whatever they need to talk about. And it's good for us too, because we went through the same thing. We saw the same thing they saw. So it's a good, it goes both ways, and it's very helpful when it goes that way, and it builds a lot of trust.